Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, we are from group 12. We're presenting about our topic from topic 12 that is titled The Islamic Critique of Western Ethical Theory. Okay, before we are presenting our topic, I will introduce my group member first. That is starting from me as a first presenter. Okay, Jalil bin Siroon 1818129, and then the second one is Muhammad Luqmanulhakim bin Muhammad Aziz 1913885, and the last presenter is Irfan bin Hamat 1813849. Okay, moving on to the next slide. This is the content of our presentation slides. This one is relativism theory. Second one is divine command theory. The third one is utilitarian theory. The fourth one is egoism theory. The fifth one is deontology theory, and the sixth is virtue ethics theory. Okay, we're moving on to the next slide. Okay, starting from our presenting is about the introduction. From an Islamic point of view, ethics is related to the several Arabic terms, that is the ma'ruf, meaning that approved, khair, goodness, haq, truth and right, bir, that is rationals, his, equity, out, equilibrium and justice, and the last one is tawhid, means that is a piety. Okay, the term that is most closely related to the ethic in the Quran is akhlaq. That is referring to the Bacon in 1996. Okay, according to the Oxford Dictionary about the defining of ethics, that is the system of moral principle by which human action may be judged as good or bad and right and wrong. So, to identify whether a behavior or decision is ethically performed, there are several ethical theories to explain what is right and what is wrong. So this includes relativism theory, utilitarian theory, egoism theory, deontology theory, the divine command theory, and the last one is the virtue ethics theory. Okay, we move on to the next slide. About the first theory is the relativism theory. Okay, this theory finds out that there are no moral principles that are completely right, relevant, and applicable to companies and people of all countries. So this theory argued that there are several ethical principles and values that members of any society or culture must accept if that society is to stay alive and if its members are to act together with each other efficiently. So, for example, all society and the culture have norms against killing other members of the society. So, norms against stealing the personal goods of other members of one society, and norms against taking bribe or involving in corruption. So, this is recorded by the Values School in 2006. So, Islam critique on the relativism theory because of the first point is there is a right and wrong cannot be left to a particular society because of human beings have inherent weaknesses in that they will tend to behave in a manner that they see is convenient. So, regardless of whether such action is right or wrong. So, the second point is this is why Muslims have to base their action on the word of Allah, that is Quran, and Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the third point, Islam also respects the culture of any society as long as it is not against what is Islamically prescribed. For example, the Prophet Muhammad recognized such acts as telling the truth as morally right and reject other acts such as killing a newborn girl as being morally wrong. Okay? And then we moving to the next slide discussing about the divine command theory. Okay, the divine command theory is argue that the nature of right and wrong is based on religious belief, which in this context refers to the Jewish and Christian religion that are claimed to be divine. And then, however, the purpose is not absolutely understood. This theory has created some serious problem for believer and non-believer alike. So, for the non-believer such as atheists, they are reject totally the divine theory because of they believe that God is not exist. So the believer have problem with this theory because of a theological reason. So Islam critique on divine command theory because of the first one is in contrast to Jewish and Christian religion. Islam make the purpose of existence of humankind in this world clearly. For example, is to become the servant and the vicegerent of Allah. And then for the second point, human beings are created for the sole purpose of worshipping the one God through the engagement of good things and avoided from engaging in wrong things. And for Muslims, what is right and wrong is clearly exposed through the words of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's all presentation from me. Thank you so much for staying in my presentation, and I will pass to the next presenter to present their slide. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
So thank you, Brother Jalil, for explaining about the first two theories. I am Luqmanulhakim with the metric number 1913885. And now I would like to explain about the third Western theory, which is known as Egoism Theory. The general idea of Egoism Theory is that one must always perform in his or her own interests, according to Ho in 2007. An action is considered to be morally right when it promotes a person's self-interest more than the interests of others. Or in other words, Egoism Theory assumes that each person ought to follow his or her own self-interest exclusively. This means that a person does not have an ethical duty except to do what is best for him or her. So, the only ultimate standard of conduct is the standard of self-interest, and this standard involves a person's natural duties and obligations. Conversely, Bayer in 1958 argues that egoism theory cannot be right because it cannot explain conflict of interest. Also, the theory fails to justify the ethics of altruism, according to Velasquez in 2006. Then, furthermore, the theory will have each person assign greater importance to his or her interests than to the interests of others. But there is no general difference between oneself and others to which each person can appeal, which justifies the difference in treatment. As a result, critics argue that egoism theory is unacceptably logical because people must care about the interests of other people for the same reason they care about their own interests. Armstrong in 1993 indicates that egoism theory is relevant to business schools, as businesses are in search of maximization of profits as their prime objective. However, this theory repeatedly results in conflict of interest and can't always be adapted to the mission of serving public and clients' interests, like, for example, in the accounting profession. Moreover, egoism theory might be in conflict with the principles of accountants' ethical code of conduct, as accountants must have objectivity, integrity, due care, and protect public interest. Consequently, egoism theory has its limitation as a sufficient ethical theory for accountants. Here are the critics of Islam towards the egoism theory. So Islam critiques the egoism theory as unacceptable because it is essentially against the Islamic principles of justice, helping others, and altruism. According to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, a Muslim has no iman until he loves his brother as he loves himself. Muslims are strongly encouraged to be considerate and help others without looking for material rewards from the society. Doing so, they will receive rewards in the hereafter, as Allah promised and mentioned in several verses in the Quran. Okay, so now I will move on to the fourth theory, which is utilitarian theory, or known as utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is a common term for any view that holds that procedures and actions should be evaluated on the basis of the benefits and costs they impose on society. Utilitarian theory argues that a behavior is considered morally right when it results in a greater number of utilities than it could be achieved by any other action, according to Sturgeon in 2009. Then, utilitarian theory and egoism theory both consider the consequences of an action with different approaches of evaluating an ethical conduct. Egoism theory focuses on the consequences for the self, whereas utilitarian theory focuses not only for the self, but also for as many as possible. Besides, utilitarian theory uses cost-benefit analysis to judge a morally acceptable behavior and states that people should act to create the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Utilitarian theory has been criticized because it is difficult to prove what counts as value or good. One's good may be another's bad and vice versa. Moreover, professionals such as accountants and managers may find it difficult to define the best for all stakeholders. As a result, it will be a challenge for professionals to determine what is the best because the future is constantly changing. Also, critics argue that utilitarian theory fails to preserve the human rights and justice because this theory focuses only on the consequences. For example, if a person robs a bank in order to help poor people, he intends to help poor people, for example, such action is considered ethical according to the utilitarian perspective. So, as we can see here, Islam also have critics towards this utilitarianism theory. So, generally, Islam does not accept any wrongdoing. For example, like stealing or cheating, regardless of whether it brings greater good for the society or else, or not. In view of that, Islam does not accept utilitarian theory as a sufficient theory because this theory considers ethics as having the greatest consequences for the greatest number. This means when some actions may be inherently wrong. From the Islamic perspectives, Muslims must follow the right ethics in accordance to Islamic principles, according to the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Hajj, verse 7. The Islamic system takes care of the interests of everyone in the society because of the universal ethical values and principles imposed by the religion, according to Al-Qaradawi and Muhammad in 1985 and 2005. So that's all from me about egoism and utilitarianism and utilitarian theory. And then I would like to proceed with the next presenter, Brother Irfan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Irfan bin Hamat. I am the third presenter of this group, and I will continue the presentation with another two theories, which are Deontology Theory and also Virtue Ethics Theory. Okay, first of all, we proceed to the Deontology Theory. What is Deontology Theory? Deontology theory underlines duty as a basic moral category. This theory also focuses on a universal statement of right and wrong. Deontology is actually derived from the Greek word deon, which is duty. The theory actually argues that a person has a duty to do what is right without having to consider the consequences of his or her action. This is according to Ho, 2007. I try to give you a simple example based on this theory. Okay, let's say if we found a killer in a society, we all will hate him. Of course we hate because he is a killer, and consider him wrong because he or she has killed somebody. Okay, but we don't know the detail behind the situation. Okay, maybe we can say that the person has killed, has committed the murder because another reason, like self-defense and so on. That what we call the simple example that I can give based on deontology theory. Okay, the most representative supporter of deontology theory is Immanuel Kant. As we know, he is the German philosopher in, if I'm not mistaken, 18th century, something like that. Then he believed that there are universal ethics that everyone must accept. For example, never do something unless you are willing to have everyone done it. It is based on Velasquez. Okay, moving on to the Islamic critique on the deontology theories. What based on Islam, what Islamic says, what Islam has says based on deontology theory. Okay, deontology theory is also not actually not acceptable in an Islamic context because of what? Because of the only lawgiver for the overall system, including the ethical system, is just Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. It is based on Al-Quran, chapter 16, verse 86. Okay, then the Prophet Muhammad, peace and prayers be upon him, advised his follower or Sahaba to treat others as how they like others to treat them. It's according to Muhammad 2005. And last one is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says in the Quran, in chapter 41 verse 34, nor can goodness and evil be equal. Repel evil with what is better. That is according to Islamic critics based on deontology theories. Okay, moving on to the last theory, which is virtue ethics theory. What is virtue ethics theory? Virtue ethics theory defines what is right and wrong based on specific traits and value every person must follow. According to this theory, the purpose of an ethical life is to develop general characters called ethical virtues, and to apply and exhibit them is reality. It is based on Velasquez 2006. Meaning to say here, even though we do our job is not for the rewards, displaying virtue ethics at the world actually can help us in order to achieve more than others who don't have that character. That means here virtue ethics is focusing on the our character rather than action. The most representative supporter of virtue ethics theory is Aristotle. Okay, according to him, several virtue traits that every person must have, such as civility, cooperativeness, courage, fairness, friendliness, generosity, honesty, justice, loyalty, self-confidence, self-control, modesty, fairness, and also tolerance. This is according to Rachel's 1993. Okay, moving on to the next. Okay, what is Islamic critique on based on virtue ethics theory? Okay, Islam consider both ethic action and virtue ethics, not just only on criterion as contented by virtue ethics theory that is based on the character. It is based on Muhammad 2005. Sorry. Okay, and in Islam, every person must behave according to specific ethical characteristics, but the source of these characteristics are Quran and Sunnah. Prophet Muhammad saying practice and approval according to Al-Quran 31 verse 77. In Islam also, individuals have a very clear picture about what is right and wrong as enriched in the Quran and Sunnah. It is based on Al-Qardawi in 1985, and also based on Al-Quran chapter 58 and verse 7. So for the conclusion, it can be concluded that ethics are defined as what is right and wrong. Several theories define ethics based on different standards. Okay, every theorist has a single viewpoint with regard to ethic issues like action, character, religion, or culture. The Western concept and understanding of ethics are incomplete in explaining what is right and what is wrong. Okay, Islam has comprehensive perspective regarding the ethical issues because the lawgiver for all systems, including the ethical system, is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, who knows everything and what is best for all human beings. I think that's all from us. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.